The genesis of this project was that we needed more lecturing space and we needed more en-suite accommodation. That's where we began. And in the course of this, we invited a community of sisters to come and live and effectively die amongst us.
When the sunlight catches the edge of the glass, it sends these extraordinary elliptical laser lines.
He did it on purpose. He didn't intend it.
Absolute accident.
He wanted to get a bit of colour in.
He said it's the building's gift to us. You said some buildings are hard and unforgiving, but this building wants to give back what's been put into it.
We started originally thinking about a convent and a chapel together, but in fact, I think it was quite early on in the project we collapsed the convent element into the new other building, so the sisters have occupied part of that, and the chapel then became the standalone thing that could just be a spiritual space in the midst of the community.
If you look at the far side of our building, the sacristy section, it would have connected into where the convent would be. But the space that we were given within the architectural competition was the space within the trees.
Yeah.
It was designed so that when you come out the doorway, you were directly under the beach. So we saw it the entrance not just about coming in, but about coming back out again and sort of. I'm always interested in that moment when you walk out of the cinema or you walk out of buildings and you're suddenly back in the world again. What happens? And I just thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to arrive out under that? And there's a tiny gap between the Spanish chestnut and the Scots pine on the other end of it, which we've projected a little bowsprit window out through to look across at Garsington. So we have these two little off-centre axes, which kind of change the ellipse a bit. When we did the initial competition design, we had a woven timber screen around the outside of the building on an ashlar base, and one of the significant changes that was imposed upon the project by English Heritage, and in some part by the client, was that the building should be stone on the outside. So we had this theme of weaving, which we wanted to reinterpret, but we needed to reinterpret it in a new material. And so we began to look at how we could do that in stone. And we made these blocks of stone, which were taken by cutting long rectangular rods of stone and then simply snapping them off like biscuits. And what you get then is you get a broken face and a cut face. And what we've done is to alternate the broken face and the cut face on the stone, and then to put it into what's called a dogtooth bond, where the thing is turned at 45 degrees to the plane of the wall. That was really useful for dealing with the ellipse, because the ellipse has got an endlessly variable geometry on the radius.
When we'd consulted South Oxfordshire District Council, and they were very clear from the outset, no pastiches. So they weren't interested in mimicking the kind of pitch of the roof or the way it looked. They said, you've got to put the 21st century on site. Our reaction to that, I have to say, was huge excitement. Crucially, what we wanted in worship, and you'll see this in the layout of the chapel, was not just visibility externally, but visibility internally, so you could see each other. The old chapel, we're all just looking east, and all you see is the backs of people's heads. The new chapel enables us to actually face one another and have something antiphonal and conversational.
And he said, well, we want a collegiate form of chapel. And then I just saw his hands go like that. And I thought, well, I've got it.
Got it.
Which you've got
Keep quiet about it.
But this is what I'm going to do.
Because he said, but it has to have some sense of community.
Yeah,
so it's that sense of having them people opposite each other, but drawing them together. Now, what was your brief for us when you met us at the briefing?
I cannot remember the exact, but it was basically that you would walk in and it would be a jaw-dropping and stunning and prayerful experience. Wasn't that was that wasn't the exact
So no pressure.
No, exactly.
Easily done.
So it's a bit like walking into Wembley Stadium, but with a bit of prayerful angle to it.
Well, yes. Well, I mean, I think walking into Wembley Stadium, if your jaw drops, that's a prayerful experience.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I was imagining that the light levels would be much lower, in a curious sort of way. It's very open in that sense.
I think the thing about it was that we really wanted you to feel that you were in a very contained space, but you were among the trees,
yes,
and that you were looking up and seeing the tree canopy. I mean, one thing about the project is there were a large number of people here in terms of the making who were saying, like the lime plaster. Lime plaster is very rare to get the chance to make a whole interior out of lime plaster. So they felt it was a big thing for them to be doing. But those guys were lying on their backs doing that. So they were lying on their backs in that space between the structure and the ceiling doing it. And I think there was a real sense of vocation that they had about it as well. And these timberwork guys were incredible. You would think they were building a clock or some machine. They were so precise in setting up.
This is probably the first entirely new
Yes.
religious building in the county, which, you know, isn't dual purpose. I mean, you can get churches going up these days that are, you know, double as community
Exactly.
centres and so forth and that kind of thing. But to have something that's completely and only dedicated to worship also seemed to me made a very powerful statement about faith.
Yes.
There was one wonderful moment in the design of the building where I was very keen for the joints between the timber work to be voids, but there was actually only one company in Britain that could make a joint like that. It's like invisible dentistry. There's this strange thing that comes back into the timber and goes down into the timber and connects it together from the inside. And they were quite a bit more expensive than the others. And the bursar for the sisters at a meeting said, I'm an accountant, I'm a retired man, I've never heard of such a thing that you would spend that much money on an invisible joint, you know, what are we supposed to make of this, and so on. He went through the whole thing. As a practical man, I can't support this sort of thing. And then he paused and said, but then I think of myself at prayer. And I'm looking up and seeing that joint and knowing that it wasn't meant to be there.